Hello and welcome back to the final hours of a Cannes Film Festival that began with a brash party in Gatsby and then pretty much proceeded from there. On screen we've had love and death, sex and violence. Off screen it's been rain and robbery. And now this Cannes is almost closed. Joining me out at the UK Pavilion down on the beach is The Guardian's film critic Peter Bradshaw and chief arts writer Charlotte Higgins. Peter, here at the end of all things, how are your energy levels holding up? Has this festival broken you yet?
I'm holding up pretty well. I'm an old enough hand to kind of take the long view and realise, you don't need to get cross with everything.
Has the quality been consistent? Has that been enough to surf you through the rough patches?
Yeah, I actually think this is a very good Cannes. I've been skipping around like Pollyanna, telling everybody how great it is. There's really only a very few things I haven't liked very much, and some things I've liked an enormous amount. I think there have been some absolutely brilliant films here. So yes, the quality, I'm not sure whether it's a vintage year, but it's certainly, I think, a very good year.
Okay, and the old motto is always bad news first. So bad news first from you, Charlotte. What's been bad at this year's Cannes?
Well, the film, I'm afraid, that really made me depressed was Un Château en Italie, A Castle in Italy by Valeria Bruni Tedeschi, which was a family drama about the terrible problems that the rich, very, very rich people encounter, based quite strongly on Valeria Bruni Tedeschi's own life. She is, of course, the sister of Carla Bruni, although there was no sister figure.
But she doesn't like talking about that aspect of the autobiographical nature of the film, does she?
No, so she she stormed out of an interview with The Times because the Times interviewer had asked her about her relationship with one of the characters, with one of the actors in the film, who in the film her character has a relationship with. So there's all this mingling and blurring of autobiography and fiction in the film, which wasn't what I objected to it about. I mean, that's sort of quite interesting, the sort of patchwork of real life and fiction. It just wasn't a sufficiently interesting film.
Peter, while we're on this subject, what are your worst in show?
The Immigrant. I like James Gray. I think he's an interesting guy who always tries to give you something other than the usual formula. But this was very gloomy. It just lost its way in the gloom. It's very lost its way. And considering that it was so hot on authenticity, it had some outrageously inauthentic and implausible moments. I think you and I were saying it looks like a Woody Allen movie sometimes, but with no jokes. It's just very bizarre.
The Cannes organisers pride themselves on this being a festival of discovery. It's a chance for people to break through. Have there been any kind of big discoveries for you this year, do you think?
Well, I'm always discovering things, actually, because I'm much less of a cineast than either you, Zan, or Peter. So I'm often discovering wonderful things, and this is a real film education for me every year. Actually, the British film of Clio Barnard, The Selfish Giant, I hadn't seen The Arbour before I actively sought it out in order to mug up for her to see her film here, The Selfish Giant. And I thought both The Selfish Giant here and the previous film, The Arbour, were absolutely wonderful. So for me, that was a great discovery, and fabulous to see a new British auteur emerge. That's wonderful.
Peter, how about you?
Abdel Latif Kechiche doesn't count as a discovery because he's a very well-established director, and in fact, his film Blue is the Warmest Colour, in fact, returns in some ways to the style and setting of a film he made 10 years ago called Les Esquives. But in a way, it is a discovery because he's broken through into the next level in such a spectacular way with this wonderful, wonderful film. And Michael Douglas, in a way, Michael Douglas's performance as Liberace, what a discovery that is. I mean, my God, it's his juiciest role since Gordon Gekko, and maybe it's his.
I think it's his best.
And
ever,
it's his
really.
best ever. I mean, now I can't imagine anybody else having. I couldn't imagine him before playing Liberace. Now I can't imagine anybody else doing it.
And finally, the last order of business is Sunday night. The Palme d'Or is awarded. My hope is that it will be La Grande Bellezza by Paolo Sorrentino, but I doubt it. I think that its stock is kind of falling. Peter, what do you think?
Interestingly, the Grande Bellezza is not much liked among the French, as far as I could canvass. Opinions are much more divided than you might imagine from the very enthusiastic way this film, I think rightly, has been received among the Anglo-Saxons and the Americans and the Brits. I've got a feeling it's going to be Blue is the Warmest Colour, the story of a passionate affair between two young women. I think the jury can get behind that. I think they will think that that is where the beating heart of the festival is.
Yeah, because it's
love
political, but it's
Yeah.
intimate. It's
yeah.
kind of, it takes some risks, and it kind of brings everybody back on
and it
side.
has some corking performances. I mean, those performances are just out of this world.
Charlotte, what's your tip?
Well, second guessing Cannes jury is always a mug's game, really, because you can never quite, unless you've got an inside track on the mind of the jury president, who this year is Steven Spielberg, and what the conversations are going on in that room, who can tell? But if you can feel opinion coalescing around a single film, it's that one, isn't it? It really feels, and gay marriage was legalised in France this week. It's a hugely political subject. The idea that a director can finally make a grown-up film about female sexuality and lesbian sexuality that isn't voyeuristic and tacky. Well, I've yet to see it, but it has such a good feeling about it. I wouldn't be surprised if that won.
C'est marrant. En fait, si tu veux, tout ça n'a pas beaucoup d'importance. Sartre, en fait, il a fait une petite révolution intellectuelle qui a eu pour mérite de libérer toute une génération. Faire qu'on peut décider soi-même de sa vie sans aucun principe supérieur. Moi, j'étais hyper Sartre dans mes années lycée.
C'est vrai?
Ouais. Ça me faisait du bien. Surtout dans l'affirmation de ma liberté et de mes propres valeurs. Tu vois.
And that's it from the 66th Cannes Film Festival. My thanks to Peter Bradshaw and Charlotte Higgins, thanks to the UK Pavilion for providing this venue, and of course thanks to you for sticking with us through thick and thin. The weather has been fitful, but Cannes is still the reigning champ. See you same time next year.